When a man with a larger-than-average penis engages in intimacy with a woman, both physical and psychological factors come into play. At first, some women may feel nervous or even slightly intimidated, especially if they have not had much experience with bigger partners. Psychology research shows that anxiety in these moments can directly affect arousal. When tension rises, vaginal muscles often tighten, which can make initial penetration more difficult. This is why patience, gentle communication, and proper foreplay are essential. These elements help a woman's body relax, reduce discomfort, and allow for a smoother experience. Interestingly, studies highlight that not all women actually prefer larger sizes. For many, what matters more is emotional connection, rhythm, and the ability to communicate desires openly. While some may find size visually exciting, others worry about possible discomfort or pain. In such cases, proper lubrication, slow progression, and attention to comfort make a big difference. From the man's perspective, having a larger size can sometimes bring a confidence boost, largely due to cultural beliefs linking masculinity with penis size. However, this same belief can also create pressure, leading to performance anxiety and fear of not meeting expectations. Healthy sexual experiences are less about physical measurements and more about shared intimacy and understanding. For women, adapting to a partner's size is not only a physical process, but also a mental one. Trust, emotional closeness, and a sense of safety help reduce anxiety, allowing for deeper pleasure. In fact, many couples find that emotional compatibility influences satisfaction and orgasm far more than physical traits alone. True compatibility grows over time, through open conversations, respecting boundaries, and experimenting together. Simple practices, such as extended foreplay, exploring different positions, and maintaining honesty, can turn what might seem intimidating into a fulfilling experience for both partners. In the end, size by itself does not define sexual success. What truly matters is mutual respect, emotional connection, and the willingness to explore and grow together. When these elements are present, couples, even those with significant physical differences, can achieve deeply rewarding intimacy. When it comes to sexual intimacy, society often magnifies one factor above all others: size. For decades, movies, jokes, and even casual conversations have shaped the belief that a bigger penis automatically leads to better sex. But is that really the truth? Or is it just another cultural myth that oversimplifies one of the most complex human experiences? Psychologists and sex researchers suggest that the answer is far more nuanced. While some women may initially feel a spark of curiosity or even excitement when faced with a partner who is larger than average, that same curiosity can quickly transform into anxiety. Questions may cross her mind. Will this hurt? Can my body adjust? Will I even enjoy this experience, or will it become uncomfortable? These thoughts matter because sexual arousal is not purely physical, it's psychological. A woman who feels tense or afraid is less likely to produce natural lubrication, and her muscles may instinctively tighten. This tension can create discomfort, or even pain, which in turn reduces her ability to fully enjoy the moment. This is why foreplay, communication, and emotional reassurance are not just nice to have. They are essential. The more a woman feels relaxed, cared for, and emotionally connected, the easier it becomes for her body to respond with pleasure rather than resistance. But here's the surprising part. Research shows that when women are asked about their long-term preferences, very few say size is the most important factor. Instead, they emphasize rhythm, creativity, emotional closeness, and the ability to feel truly understood by their partner. In fact, many women confess that being with someone too large can sometimes feel overwhelming, leading them to prioritize comfort and connection over sheer physical size. On the other side of the equation, men with larger genitalia often carry their own psychological weight. For some, it creates confidence. They feel validated by society's message that bigger is better. But confidence can easily shift into pressure. The fear of not living up to expectations, of not performing the way their partner imagines, can actually cause performance anxiety. And anxiety, as we know, is one of the biggest killers of pleasure for both men and women. So what actually makes sex deeply satisfying? The answer is not found in measurements, but in moments. Moments of trust, laughter, vulnerability, and experimentation. Couples who openly discuss what feels good and what doesn't often report much higher levels of satisfaction than those who focus only on physical traits. Think about it. What's more powerful? A man trying to rely only on his size, or a man who listens, adapts, and makes his partner feel safe enough to fully surrender to the experience? The truth is, sexual compatibility is not built in a single night. It grows over time, through patience, through experimentation, through the courage to talk about desires without shame. Couples who explore foreplay without rushing, who try different positions to maximize comfort, and who create an atmosphere of emotional safety, often find that their intimacy becomes richer with each encounter. From a psychological standpoint, intimacy is less about anatomy and more about energy exchange. A partner who feels loved and emotionally secure is far more likely to reach orgasm, regardless of size. Science backs this up. Emotional bonding hormones like oxytocin play a huge role in how pleasurable sex feels, often more so than the physical act itself. So here's the ultimate takeaway. Size might grab attention, but it's connection that keeps desire alive. It's not the length or width of a penis that determines satisfaction. It's the depth of trust, the flow of communication, and the strength of emotional intimacy. When these ingredients come together, even the most intimidating physical differences fade into the background, replaced by a far more powerful force, the joy of shared pleasure. But here's a question many men still secretly wonder. Now let's step deeper into the psychology behind this dynamic. For many women, the very first moment of intimacy with a larger-than-average partner can feel like a test of both the body and the mind. There is anticipation, yes, but also fear. The mind races. Can I handle this? Will it hurt? Will he be patient with me? These questions silently shape her emotional state before the act even begins. And as psychologists remind us, the brain is the most powerful sexual organ. If her mind is tense, her body will resist. If her mind feels safe, her body will open. This is where men often underestimate the power of reassurance. A simple phrase, like, "We'll take it slow," or "Tell me if it's too much," can completely change the energy in the room. What might have been a moment of anxiety transforms into a moment of trust. And trust, as countless studies show, is one of the strongest precursors to sexual satisfaction. But here's something most men don't realize. Women don't just evaluate the act itself, they evaluate him. If he rushes, ignores her signals, or acts as though size alone will impress her, she may mentally check out. But if he listens, adapts, and shows empathy, she begins to see him not just as a sexual partner, but as someone capable of emotional intimacy. And this is where the paradox of size comes in. A man who assumes that being larger automatically guarantees pleasure may neglect the very behaviors that actually create it. He might rely too heavily on physical presence, forgetting that true attraction lies in how he makes her feel, not just physically but emotionally. For women, satisfaction often comes in layers: physical comfort, emotional safety, mental stimulation, spiritual connection. If even one of these layers is missing, the experience may feel incomplete. On the other hand, when all four layers align, size becomes secondary, almost irrelevant. Now, let's flip the perspective for a moment. Imagine being the man in this situation. Society has drilled into his head that bigger is better. His friends joke about it, the media reinforces it, and his ego feels tied to it. At first, he may feel proud, confident, even superior. But as intimacy begins, Another voice may whisper inside his head, "What if she doesn't enjoy this? What if I hurt her? What if I can't live up to the fantasy she has in her mind?" This is the hidden side of masculinity, where pride and pressure collide. The very thing that was supposed to give him confidence can also become the source of his insecurity. And when performance anxiety takes over, it can sabotage not just his experience, but hers too. So what's the solution? The answer lies in shifting focus away from the question of size and toward the question of connection. Because here's the truth. Women don't remember intimacy by measurements. They remember it by moments. The way he kissed her forehead when she was nervous. The way he slowed down when she whispered, "Wait." The way he laughed with her when things didn't go perfectly, instead of acting embarrassed. These small details are what leave a lasting impression. Science supports this too. Studies in sexual psychology repeatedly show that emotional closeness has a stronger correlation with orgasm than penis size, stamina, or even sexual technique alone. When a woman feels emotionally safe, her body is far more responsive. Her mind allows her to let go, and in letting go, her pleasure deepens. But here's where it gets interesting, and perhaps a little unsettling. Not all women react the same way to a man's size. Some find it exciting, others find it intimidating. Some may even avoid partners who are significantly larger because they associate it with pain or discomfort. In fact, surveys reveal that a majority of women prefer average size for regular intimacy, reserving the idea of larger than average more for visual fantasy than for long-term satisfaction. And this raises a deeper psychological question. If size isn't the deciding factor, what is? Is it technique, emotional presence, creativity in the bedroom, or is it something even more primal, like the ability to make her feel desired, chosen, and safe? This question has fascinated researchers for decades, and the answer might surprise you. To truly understand this debate, we have to step back and ask, why does size even matter in the first place? Is it purely biological? Is it psychological conditioning? Or is it simply cultural programming that has been exaggerated through media and social conversations? From a biological perspective, the female body is designed with incredible adaptability. The vaginal canal is elastic, capable of expanding during childbirth, which is far beyond the size of any partner she will encounter in intimacy. But adaptability doesn't automatically equal pleasure. Just because the body can adjust doesn't mean the mind is ready or that the experience will be comfortable. This is where psychology enters the picture. When a woman anticipates discomfort, her body reacts defensively, her muscles tense, lubrication slows, even her breathing patterns change, sending signals of caution to the brain. In that moment, size doesn't feel like an advantage, it feels like a challenge. Yet, when she feels emotionally safe, her response transforms. The same body that resisted now welcomes. The same mind that feared now desires. Suddenly, what once seemed intimidating becomes exciting. And here's where the irony lies. The man, who focuses only on size, misses this entire psychological dimension. He may believe he already has the ultimate advantage, but in reality, he could be sabotaging himself by neglecting her emotional readiness. Now, let's consider the cultural angle. Society has long tied masculinity to size. From locker room banter to adult films, the message is loud and clear. Bigger means better, stronger, more desirable. But psychologists argue that this cultural script is not only misleading, it's damaging. Why? Because it places unnecessary pressure on both men and women. Men feel they must live up to an unrealistic standard or else risk being judged as less masculine. Women, on the other hand, may feel pressured to pretend that size matters more than it actually does, just to protect a man's ego. In both cases, authenticity gets lost. Instead of focusing on genuine connection, both partners are trapped inside roles dictated by cultural myths. But here's the deeper truth that often goes unspoken. The couples who experience the most satisfying intimacy aren't the ones obsessed with size, they're the ones obsessed with each other. Think about that for a second. The man who looks his partner in the eyes and says, "Tell me what feels good," creates a completely different experience than the man who assumes his size alone will impress. One is grounded in ego, the other is grounded in empathy. And empathy, not ego, is what unlocks real sexual chemistry. Here's another psychological layer most people overlook. Memory. Women often describe their most unforgettable sexual experiences not in terms of size, but in terms of how they felt. They talk about feeling desired, cared for, respected, even worshipped. They talk about the rush of emotional intimacy, not just physical sensation. So, if that's the case, then size becomes nothing more than a bonus, a factor that might add visual appeal, but not necessarily long-term satisfaction. But let's pause here for a moment. If women truly value connection over size, why does the cultural myth of bigger is better continue to dominate? Why do men still feel such intense pressure? And why do women still pretend it matters? More than it does, the answer lies in one of the deepest psychological forces of human behavior: perception. Because here's the secret. Sometimes perception matters just as much as reality.